Do you find yourself constantly saying yes when you're really meaning to say no? Today we're going to talk about how to set clear boundaries so you can change your life and gain back control. Stay tuned to transform your relationships and your personal well-being. If you're new here, then my name is Dr. Elisha Goldstein. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm author of numerous books and creator of the therapeutic coaching program called Uncover the Power Within. If you want to learn how to work with me more closely, or you just want a collection of free resources, go ahead and click on the links in the description below. If you've ever felt taken advantage of because you couldn't set boundaries for yourself, I want you to know that you're not alone. Today, I'm not just going to share strategies with you about how to set those boundaries better so you can finally start taking care of yourself, but also stories of how that has transformed other people's lives, including my own. Now, the first tool I want to discuss with you is something called the clarity tool. And the reason we're going to start with this one is because oftentimes when it comes to setting boundaries, we have so much stuff mixed up with that. Stuff from our past, our history, growing up, all different kinds of reasons why we don't set boundaries that are not conscious. And so it's important to be conscious about why you need to set these boundaries. Is it to protect your time? Is it to protect your energy? Is it to protect your health? What are you going to get out of setting these boundaries? In other words, you have to be selfish for a second to give your brain the reason to be able to pay attention to that. For example, I've realized I needed boundaries in my life for different reasons. One was to protect my health. There was a time in my life where my family was going through all kinds of upheaval, and I had to take care of a lot of people. And so I needed to protect my health in order to make it through that time, in order to be able to manage the stress of it all. Or there's other times where I needed to really protect my boundaries in order to protect my creative space. I would never have been able to write the books that you see behind me, The Now Effect, Uncovering Happiness, a mindfulness-based stress reduction workbook, unless I protected the boundaries for my creative space. Those have gone on to benefit not just a lot of people, but also me in a lot of ways, professionally and personally and things like that. And so it was important for me to understand why I was making those sacrifices and protecting those boundaries. What was I going to get out of it? What were other people going to get out of it? So for you, consider the question, what are you going to get out of saying no to the different situations that you have difficulty saying no to, or the different people you have difficulty saying no to? What are you going to get out of that? Answer that question first. The first example I'll give you is one at work, and then I'll give you one with a personal relationship as well. So imagine you're working and you're feeling overwhelmed by the workload. If you do actually work for somebody, that might sound familiar. Let's imagine you've been putting in all kinds of extra hours and that the work keeps piling up and now you're starting to feel burnt out. And you know that because you're starting to snap at people and, or maybe you're starting to be more self-critical in your own mind. So using these principles of nonviolent communication, this is what it might look like for you. You might say something to your boss, something like, hey, so-and-so, I wanted to talk with you about something. I've been feeling really overwhelmed lately. There's a ton of stuff on my plate. And at the same time, I have so many competing priorities in the work that I'm doing, and I'm now feeling really anxious and depleted. So notice how I said that, and I didn't say it in any attacking way. I just said it kind of in a matter-of-fact type of way. I'm just kind of naming what's happening as it is. And maybe your boss or someone would come in and say, wow, I didn't even realize that your workload was too much for you. Or maybe they would say, like, I know you've been doing a lot right now. I don't know. Either way, even if they didn't notice or they did notice, they might respond something like that. And they might ask, like, oh, what do you think you're needing right now? And then you can share in that moment. There's an opening. What I'm really needing is some breathing room, and I'm needing maybe some space and some balance. I need that to get more focused so that I can be just maximally productive at what I'm doing, just really effective in the work that I'm doing. I'm wondering if we can maybe look at prioritizing some of the tasks that you've given me so I can, be more effective at what I do, or maybe there could be someone else that could support me. I can get an extra hand for me temporarily so I could be more effective. So that's a way of just kind of being able to name what's happening, how you're feeling, create an opening for someone to say, okay, well, what needs to happen here? We're creating a bit of a compromise so that you can begin to share what your needs are. Okay, so let's imagine that is scenario one, and that's something that would maybe happen at the workplace. Scenario two might look something like maybe it's a scenario that happens in a lot of couples where someone's maybe on their phone too much or they're more disconnected. And you could say something like, hey, so and so, I want to share something that's been on my mind lately. When we're spending time together, I notice that you're constantly checking your phone. Or not, maybe don't say it like, maybe something like, I notice you're checking your phone a lot, and I end up feeling really ignored and unimportant when that's happening. So again, you're just kind of naming what's happening, and you're naming the feeling that's coming up for you. You're using I statements. You're not blaming, like you do this and you do that. You're just kind of naming I statements. And maybe that is a surprise to somebody. And they go, wow, I didn't even realize that that was bothering you so much that I was on the news all the time. Or and the person can share with you, like, I really get distracted at times without meaning to do that. I'm so engaged in this particular cause that's here right now that I'm really feeling so tied to it. Maybe there's an opening for them to say, like, what are you needing from me? That would be something that could be discussed together. And you might be able to say, what I'm needing is for us to carve out some spaces where we're really present together so we can feel more connected. And quality time is really important to me. And I know that our relationship does better when we're feeling more connected. Would you be willing to maybe put your phone away, maybe at dinner time, so we can have more time together in that way? So it could just be discussed like that. Again, it's more of a gentle compromise that comes from that. So notice how being able to now communicate what your needs are. You're setting boundaries. You're creating boundaries. Now you're being able to communicate in the relationship. A couple examples: one at work, one at in a personal relationship. Maybe that could also be with a friendship. Be able to conveys really how you might do that. Okay, now once you know your reasons, now's the time that you can create some clear communication without defensiveness, using what we use in the Uncover the Power Within program, which is nonviolent communication. I'm going to give you an example of this right now. The final practice here is the actual practice of saying no, which can be the hardest part of the entire thing. And I'm going to share some strategies for this for you right now. I'm going to share some examples of what this can look like. Also, the psychology of why it's so hard to say no. It's going to be important to start small and start building your confidence, building up the muscle for yourself, but you can absolutely do this. The ability to set boundaries and say no is absolutely crucial, yet it's something that so many of us struggle with. And as counterintuitive as it may seem, saying no is not just an act of taking care of ourselves, but it's actually an act of taking care of our relationship. So let's explore some strategies while also honoring the psychological hurdles that we experience through this. So the first thing to understand is that we need to reframe our mindset around the word no. Too often we associate it with something that is maybe selfish or a rejection of another person, or maybe we have a thought that it's going to let somebody down if we say no. But saying no is actually a gift, and to ourselves and to other people. It's a gift to our own integrity. When we say no, we feel stronger, we feel more grounded, we feel more balanced. And that way we can be better, not just for ourselves, but for other people. So that's the first reframe that really needs to feel understood. We need to live in line with our integrity. We are going to be happier. We're going to bounce back sooner. We're going to be stronger. And therefore, of course, we're going to be better for the relationships around us. But what's underneath the difficulty of saying no? We might ask ourselves the simple question, because when we ask ourselves questions, our brain looks for answers. And we might ask ourselves, what am I afraid of if I say no to this person, to this request that's here? And what do I think is going to happen? And so you might just voice out loud whatever arises from that. And things like maybe I don't want the other person to feel unloved. Maybe that could be it. Or I'm worried that maybe they're going to see me as being really difficult. Or maybe it's going to be like they're not going to want me anymore if I say no to this stuff, and I'll be rejected and alone. feel free to voice the fear. You can just say it out loud. You can write it in a journal. Giving things like voice and breath allows you to objectify it a little more and gives you a little space so you can be more aware and you get a little bit more perspective and choice. Comes back to that Viktor Frankl quote, between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So we're just naming it. Or as my friend and colleague and mentor Dan Siegel says, name it to tame it. So we're just kind of like naming it here. And we're giving it a little voice. After we give it voice, we can say to ourselves, or we can say to the other person, saying no doesn't negate how much I care for you. It's just reinforcing that I also need to take care of myself in order to be stronger for everybody. And this is an act of what's called self-compassion. Self-compassion is the act of recognizing that there's a struggle with the inclination to want to support ourselves, and has been shown to be correlated with feeling happier, deeper psychological well-being, neurobiological benefits to it as well. And so we want to act with more self-compassion. And now from this place of self-compassion, you can, without defensiveness or needing to justify anything, you can say more clearly to someone, I just don't really have the capacity for this extra project right now. Or you can say something like, no, that doesn't work for me. Now what's left over, easier said than done, but this is what we'll play with. What's left over is that you might have some leftover guilt that's unjustified. I'm harming somebody in some way, or some underlying anxiety that's there. And for there, we kind of recognize, we notice that we're holding that in our body. We remind ourselves that we are taking care of ourselves to be better for other people, and for ourselves and for other people. And we start to kind of just release that in our body, lower our shoulders, take a deep breath, release, and also understanding that when we're better, we're going to be more connected with other people. We're creating greater intimacy for the long run here. Now, to reinforce this muscle of being able to say no and set boundaries, you're going to want to start with lower stakes type things. For example, if someone serves you maybe some dessert and you don't want that, you might say no, I'm not going to have dessert tonight. Or maybe that extra drink, no, I'm not going to have that drink tonight, or something like that. Something small. On a scale of 1 to 10, this is a 1, 2, or 3, or 4. It's nothing that huge. And then you're going to notice if there's a feeling of personal control or liberation, and you're going to draw a frame around that for yourself and recognize the accomplishment of it and recognize the good feeling that also comes with that. Now, it's important to note finally really here, if there's any what we might call in the field of psychology baggage, right? There's baggage from our family in the past that might have said something like saying no was rude or was wrong in some way, and we have to begin to rewrite this for ourselves. We recognize that old script and be able to, again, shift and say, actually, that's an old story, an old narrative. And the new narrative, I'm understanding that this is actually a benefit for myself. I can be there better actually for my family when I'm able to take care of myself and say no to certain things. So ultimately, you want to be able to cherish your space, your time in order to thrive. No one wants you, who loves you, no one wants you to be a martyr for yourself. It doesn't feel good to them. It doesn't feel good to you. So saying no not only protects your own sense of integrity and happiness, but it also makes the yeses so much sweeter. So keep in mind that the reframe is it's brave and it's generous. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't forget to share this video with anyone that you think might need and be supported with getting a better understanding on how to set up healthy boundaries. And I'm going to leave another video on the other end here for you to continue to be nurtured with and to continue to grow with. Thanks for watching. And remember, setting boundaries is not just about saying no, it's also about saying yes to something. And that yes is a healthier, happier you. See you in the next one.